Mustafa Barghouti is joining us from Ramallah. He is the Secretary General of the Palestinian National Initiative. Mustafa, thank you so much for being with us. Now, I want to firstly ask you about the situation on the ground right now in the occupied West Bank. We've seen an intensification of raids, but what is it like for people right now?
Well, it's not just the situation is not only bad in Jenin camp, where Israel is bombarding the camp continuously and using even airstrikes against the civilian population in the refugee camp, and using the whole might of the Israeli military and Israeli army against people who are under Israeli occupation. I mean, this is unprecedented, where a country that is occupying another people is using its military force as if it is conducting war on the people who are under its occupation. That's what's happening. They have just devastated huge parts of Jenin camp. They destroyed all the networks of electricity, water, and they are attacking so many houses and different places. Practically, they are repeating in people's mind what the destruction they've done in Gaza, also in the West Bank. But it's not only about Jenin. Israel has now deployed 898 checkpoints, military checkpoints, and they have put gates to block all cities in the West Bank, to block all villages in the West Bank. They have practically divided the country, divided the West Bank into clusters of small ghettos and prisons, isolated and separated from each other. Today, the people in the north could not come to the center. The people in Hebron and Bethlehem could not come to Ramallah. People who have to go to their work could not do that. The commercial system is paralyzed. So practically, you are talking about a huge campaign on all the population of the West Bank, including, of course, Jenin, but also many other areas that are attacked by the Israeli military, while we are all put under this terrible restriction. I personally experienced that today. A trip that usually takes me an hour from Jericho to Ramallah. It took us today about 5 hours to get to Ramallah. And that is the case in many places. And we were lucky because we could get to Ramallah, but most people could not. So that is the reality of what we see today.
And Mustafa, this of course is not a new situation for residents of the occupied West Bank. We've seen raids throughout the war on Gaza. This has been happening over in the occupied West Bank. So in your view, why this intensification now in the last 2 days?
Because you have a fascist government in Israel. And this fascist government wants to conduct a huge attack on all Palestinians. Their goal is clearly not only the destruction and the genocide in Gaza, but their goal is clearly the annexation of the West Bank, and if they could, ethnic cleansing of both West Bank and Gaza. That's their policy. And now that they had to accept a ceasefire in Gaza, mainly because of the pressures that were exercised on them by President Trump, they are now putting all their efforts also in the West Bank, escalating the situation to a dangerous level. And clearly, their goal is annexation. I mean, the Israeli illegal settlers are allowed to attack Palestinian communities under the protection of the Israeli army. The views that you are showing now are examples of that. The settlers attack cars, burn them. They attack houses and put them on fire. They attack streets and roads. People cannot drive safely because they could be attacked at any moment by the Israeli illegal settlers who behave as terrorist gangs. That is the reality we live in. So we are terrorized. The whole Palestinian population of the West Bank today, and of Jerusalem, of course, are terrorized after our people in Gaza were not only terrorized, but subjected to genocide.
And Mustafa, you mentioned President Donald Trump there. I want to ask you about that because yesterday we saw Donald Trump cancel sanctions on illegal Israeli settlers. And for 2 days we've seen this violent escalation of the raids. What can be made of the timing here with Donald Trump just starting his presidency yesterday?
Well, although Mr. Trump President Trump has exercised pressure on Israel to accept a ceasefire, the same deal that we had already ready, which Palestinians accepted back in May. He pressured Israel because his goal is to bring back the Israeli captives. And he forced Netanyahu to accept what he should have accepted back in May. But then Biden was very weak, and he allowed Netanyahu to manipulate him. And he even lied to the public, claiming that it was the Palestinians who were obstructing the deal. Today, it is clear that we could have saved at least 10,000 Palestinians and a number of Israeli soldiers and Israeli prisoners who were killed by also the Israeli bombardment. And the responsibility for that is on the shoulders of Netanyahu. But Trump is sending mixed messages. From one side, he helped achieve a ceasefire, that's for sure. On the other hand, he keeps he has people in his establishment, he has people in his administration, like Mike Huckabee, who come out frankly saying that Trump does not and his administration do not support the right of the Palestinian people to have a state of their own. And he even goes further to say that Palestinians don't exist, that we are an invention to steal the land of Israel. That's what they say. When they say there is no occupation, there are no settlements. So you have mixed messages here. And of course, it will be very dangerous if people like Mike Huckabee or can be responsible for the policy we will see in this region. So it's a difficult situation, but at the same time, we as Palestinians know very well that this ceasefire would not have happened, even with Trump's pressure, if it wasn't for the wonderful, heroic steadfastness of the people of Gaza, who sustained terrible genocide, but never gave up and never accepted to be ethnically cleansed. And that's what we build our hopes on, our resistance, our resilience, our ability to steadfast to all the oppression that we are subjected to.
Mustafa Barghouti, Secretary General of the Palestinian National Initiative, joining us live there from Ramallah. Thank you so much.